awesome. So this is really a great painting to do on a date night. It's called I Love You Day and Night. And my guess is this one's the day, this one's the night. But it kind of depends in the morning, right? I'm not an early riser, so, I know sunsets frequently look like the orange one, and evenings, it could be either. So you guys can decide, okay? But what I do know is that it's a beautiful pair of paintings together. And if each one of you paints one, they'll look great together on your wall or on a wall. So, all right. Welcome to your date night. And so what you should have in your kit, you should have primary colors, white and black, of course, and then red, yellow, and blue. And you should have a few different sizes of brushes. I'm going to use large, medium, and small. And I'm going to paint 2 paintings. And all right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And then once, after the first step, I'm going to go grab my beverage and we can do a toast, okay? All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my largest brush, whatever your large brush is, and I want you to coat your entire canvas with just plain old water. Just water, that's it. Super easy. Super easy, just water. And I'm doing this because it's very dry in Denver. And our acrylic paints have water in them. Acrylic paints are made out of water and pigment and glue and a little plastic, actually. That's why they're called acrylic paints. And so they do dry pretty quickly in about 5 to 10 minutes. So if I hydrate my canvas, then it will slow down the drying time and give me time to do this blending that we're going to be doing. And sometimes if you go on YouTube or you follow a video of an art class, sometimes they'll tell you that you cannot blend with acrylic, but that's not true. You absolutely can blend with acrylic. It's easier with oils, but you can blend with acrylic, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The key to blending with acrylic is keeping your canvas wet, or a little bit wet, and that will help you blend. It's not often I paint on 2 canvases, although I have done it before, but in a live class, and I usually have 4 easels spread out. So this is new, duct taping them together. We'll see how that works. All right, so I have water all over on my canvas. So I hope between the 2 of you that you've already identified who's going to do the I love you day and who's going to do the I love you night. Yes. Awesome. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but I'm going to pick up some white paint on both sides of my brush. And with that white paint, I'm going to apply it at the bottom of my canvas. A really good amount at the bottom of my canvas. And then I'm going to keep using that paint on my brush, and I'm just going to let it dissipate as I go. And I can turn it over to get a little more. I want there to be less white up here and more white down here. But what we're going for is a gradual transition from the white to no white paint. Of course, the easels are both white. Pardon me, the canvases are both white. But the paint is going to help us blend as we go up. So it's kind of looks silly to be painting white on white, but there's a good reason for it. And while you're doing that, I'm going to quickly grab one more easel so these don't bounce. Okay, that's a little more steady. All right, so I should have white on the bottom, pretty solid, on the bottom of each one. And then as they go up, they have a little more white until it just kind of fades away. Now, for both of you, I'm going to pick up, and I want both of you to do the same, some yellow on my brush. And I'm going to put the yellow on both sides. And then I'm going to start about halfway up with my yellow. So for one painting, it's the same thing. That's why I'm going all the way across. Why not? It's going to get a little trickier for me as I switch colors after this, but for now, just yellow all the way across, starting in the center, and then get that a nice band of yellow, and then it's going to get less and less as it goes down. And notice how I'm going all the way to the sides. And as I go, I'm going to paint the sides of my canvas. And then as I go around, I'm going to paint the top and bottom as well. And the reason I do that is that's called a gallery wrap. And it just brings the color all the way around. And then it looks more finished. And then you can hang them on the wall without a frame. And they just look like it was deliberately finished. I'm going to go a little higher than halfway, actually. I've still got a little paint on my brush, and I'm just going to use it up. I'm going to divide up some of my yellow to the other plate. All right. So for the person who's painting the green version of the painting, what I'm going to need you to do is to take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue and mix it together. And it will create green. Now, this green isn't going to look exactly like the green in the painting, and I'll tell you why. We have 500 different paintings in our gallery, and we have about 10 different shades of blue. We have about 10 different shades of green. For example, for the blue, there's phthalo blue and cerulean blue and cobalt blue, primary blue. So we just pick one blue and we put those in all the kits. So the blue might be a little different than the blue in the painting, but it's still going to look great. All right, so on the green side, I'm going to take this green that's on my brush, and notice I didn't even clean the yellow off of it because I used yellow, so not a problem. So I'm going to take that green, and I didn't mix all of my blue, I saved some. When I mix colors, I don't mix all of it together because I don't need a ton of each color. I just use some of it. I kind of go in from the side. So on the green one, we're going to start about a hand span down, and we're going to put on just green. And I might need to separate my canvases because I just realized it's going to be tricky. All right, I'm just going to be careful. So I'm going to put green pretty solid up in here, and then I'm going to come down. And it's going to get lighter and lighter, and I'm going to let it fade down. All the way from one side, all the way to the other. More green at this point up here, less green as it goes. And it's going to just dissipate down here. Now we haven't put our blue in yet, so this is a pretty lime-ish avocado green, but we haven't really put in the blue color yet, so don't worry, it won't always look this bright grass green. It's going to be a little more subdued in a few minutes. All right. Then I'm going to clean my brush. I'm actually going to take the duct tape off. Hold on. There we go. Be free. That'll be easier. Okay. So with a clean brush, and just so you know, when I paint, I always wash my brushes a ton in the water. And the reason I do that is let the water do the work. I like to conserve napkins. And so if I just take my time and let the water do the work, it will clean the brushes really well, and I won't need to use half a tree. And then I just dab it on the napkin to check it and make sure it's good. All right, so I've got green on this one. On this one, I'm going to do the same thing, but with this one, I'm going to mix yellow and red. I'm not using all my yellow. I'm not using all my red. I'm just mixing what I need to make orange. And the red is more powerful than the yellow, so I'm going to need more yellow. But again, I'm not using all of my yellow and all of my red, just enough to make an orange. All right, then I'm going to pick it up, both sides of my brush. And on this one, start with the band about there, and then I'm going to go back and forth and create this sunset look. And then I'm going to let it dissipate down here. I'm also going to paint the sides as I go. And when I get to the top, I'll do the top. When I get to the bottom, I'll do the bottom. But just going back and forth and letting it run out. Then on both of them, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the backgrounds first, and then we're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll do the trees and the moon and the stars and the birds. But on both of them, I'm going to add some water. I added some water to my white. I want it a thin white. I want it real thin. Right now it's like Greek yogurt, and I want it to be more like, at least a little bit of it to be really thin, like liquid suntan lotion. Just a little bit of it. I just don't want it to be thick. Okay. So now what I can do is on both of these, I can go in and I can put some more deliberate white. I can put white over anything that I don't like. I've got a splatter there. I'll put it right over it. Just work it in. Any brush strokes that I'm not crazy about, I'm just gonna give them a little bit of white. And just use the white to smooth. Just to smooth what we have and make these lines a little more subtle. I don't want to over blend. I don't want it to be just totally blended. I want some streaks. I want to see some yellow in there. I want to see some green in there on the green one. But I don't want it to be totally blended. And if you're in IT or math, or you keep a really clean house, you schedule people, sometimes for those of us who are meticulous, it's hard to paint loose like this, to leave streaks. So just know that it's supposed to have streaks. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, good, okay. I was gonna say, if not, then I might switch to just painting one at a time or something. So good, I'm glad you can hear me okay. All right, so remember, we wanna have that white paint thin enough. I'm adding a few more drops of water, and I'm gonna do the yellow and orange side the same way. I'm gonna use that white to just smooth out anything I don't like, or to bring two colors together. But it had to be thin white, so I did add a little bit of water to it, just so it's nice and thin. Just so that our sunset looks really soothing. Since I teach mostly in the evenings, I see a lot more sunsets than sunrises. But every now and then I get up and look out the window early, and man, even both the sunsets and the sunrises are just fantastic in Denver. So we want it to be gradual, going from white to yellow to orange with streaks. So I'm deliberately not taking too much time in between colors and letting it dry, because when I keep moving and my paint's a little wet, it will blend really nicely. In some paintings, when you want things to be very distinct and sharp and not blended, then you let it dry in between. So for the green and blue side, I clean my brush really well, and I'm gonna pick up a whole lot of blue. And I'm gonna put that blue solid on the top, nice and solid, and pick up as much as you want on your brush that you need to keep the top really solid. This blue that we chose for the kids is an ultramarine blue, and we chose it because it mixes well with other colors. But like I said, there's all different shades of blue, all different kinds of blue. And they're named after the colors of pigment, the pigment that creates the colors. So lots of blue. And you can guess, when I get to the orange and yellow one, you can already guess that I'm going to be putting red on top the same way I'm putting blue on this one. So if you want to go ahead and paint red, when you get this done, you can start with red up here. Blue on this one, red on this one. And then I'm going to give you plenty of time to catch up. I don't expect you to paint this fast. Just remember, the general idea is we want it to fade fade, what word am I looking for? Wow, has it really been that long of a day? I want it to fade and transition gently from white to yellow to green to blue. That's the ultimate goal. And then when I'm done with the blue, after that, I'm going to even put a little black up there, but not yet. Keep going with the blue, painting on the sides, going horizontally. And the reason I'm going horizontally is the wind blows across the horizon and pulls the clouds as it goes into thin clouds by the end of the day. Frequently. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're big and fluffy. But a lot of sunsets are stringy like this. And so that's why I'm putting the paint on horizontally. And then I'm going to let it just mix and mingle with that green. And then slowly go away. In this area that looks a little odd, I'm going to pick up a little more yellow and just put it a little bit above the blue while it's wet and a little below. And that's going to help those two colors blend a little bit. This is already pretty dry, so I'm putting a little bit up above in the blue and a little bit down here, the yellow, and that will help smooth this out a bit. And then I'm going to clean my brush. And on this one, I'm going to do the same thing with red. And I'm going to be very generous with the red. And we're going to do the same thing with this that we did with the other one. I'm going to clean my brush really well. And where the yellow and the orange, where the red and the orange overlap, I'm going to just put in a little bit more yellow, overlapping the two of them, and that will help bring the two together. It's kind of like if you have a party and you have different crowds of friends. If you have someone who likes to go back and forth between the two, sometimes they can help introduce the two groups together. Same kind of thing, but we're doing it with paint. Just helping them blend. But again, I don't want to smooth out all of the brush marks and all of the streaks. I want it to just blend nicely, but each color have its own character in there and its own presence. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to add a little bit more water to my white. I want to keep that white really thin. And then I'm going to pick up a little white paint on my brush. And then any place where I want to just smooth it even more and work my way up, I can put those little thin white floater clouds from my brush, just to smooth anything out that I want smoother, and add a tinge of white in areas that didn't have any white at all. Not a lot, just a little. Just adds to that streaky, sunsetty look. And that white also acts as a go-between between the blocks of color as well. I'm noticing this doesn't have quite as much blue as I wanted, so I'm going to add a little bit more blue in this area, but maybe yours looks great. You'll have to just look at it and decide if it looks gradual enough. And if it doesn't look gradual, then you'll know what to do. Add a little more blue or a little more yellow to the area that you think doesn't look gradual enough. I don't want to put white way up high because I am going to put a darker band up there, and I want it to go gradual light to dark. So I'm not going to overdo the white up here. I'm going to try to cover some of that with blue. I always recommend getting up and moving 10 feet away from your painting and looking at it from 10 feet away. And the reason I do that is if you go to a museum to see a Van Gogh or a Monet or one of the masters' works in a museum, the guard will tell you to stand back. If you put your nose in that painting, they get very, very nervous. So it's the same thing when you're painting for yourself as well, that you need to stand back. Stand back and look at it the way others would see it, from a proper viewing distance of maybe 8 to 10 feet away or more. If you have a big room and it's going to be hanging on the wall, you want to see it from the other side of the room too. Because very rarely do friends go up and put their nose in your painting the way we're painting them right now. They will usually look at it from across the room, and then they will greatly admire your skill. I have no doubt. But they're not going to do it from up close. They're going to do it from across the room. So that's where you want it to look good. So if you would get up, look at it from across the room and see what you think there. And it'll also give you an idea of what to tweak. When you look at it, you go, oh, wow, that didn't look as green from up close, or that looked more white, and I need to fix that. But we can't really see it up close. So before I apply way too much paint and have brown, I'm going to stand back and I'm going to look at mine from across the room. If you looked at it from across the room and you don't see anything you need to fix, then great. This is a good time to go refresh your beverage or let the dog out or take a victory lap. But if you do see things you want to fix, go ahead and fix them. And then after we get this background to 80% of where we want it. I always say 80 because if you go for 100, you'll probably never get 100, and then you'll just be disappointed. But if you go for 80, that's a really realistic amount. If you go for 80, you're probably going to wake up in the morning and really love it, because we're our own worst critics, and 80% tonight is going to look like 100% tomorrow, or at least 95. So I'm going to go for 80%, and then I'm going to leave it alone. I'm also going to catch any drips. I just drip some. So I'm 80% happy with mine. I might add a little bit of white. I just noticed there's some white in here, a little bit more. So I might add a little bit more white, but I'm gonna real soon leave mine alone. And you can do whatever you want. If you want to tweak yours more, you can do that, or you can just take a break. We're gonna have to let these dry for about 10 minutes before we put on our moon and our trees and our stars. All right, I'm going to make myself go away. I'm 80%, and go ahead and do whatever you want to do to fix yours, or call it the background done, and then take a break. I did just notice I have to just touch up the sides a little bit. And then I'm going to leave mine alone and let it dry. So 10-minute break. For the next part, this real red part, I'm going to just take a little bit of black, just a little, and I'm going to, oh, maybe that was too much. Go easier than I just did, maybe. I'm going to make a very dark burgundy. Maybe that's the right amount, but something like that. And I'm going to pick that up, and I'm going to put that on the very top, right up here on the top, right up here. And then right on the sides too, about the bottom, pardon me, about the top 2 or 3 inches. And then I'm going to really put it on thick right at the tippy top. Get that nice and solid if I can. My paint's a little wet, so it's kind of hard, but just put it on as much as you can up there. And then it's going to go gradually down. And it's just darkening up the sky at the top, probably 5 or 6 inches. But I want it to be gradual. I want it to be the darkest at the tippy top, and then go gradually into the red. So it's still red and it's still streaky, but it's got a little bit of darkness to it. But I'm going to stop short of the orange. I'm going to do the same thing with the blue. I'm going to pick up a little bit of black, not much. Maybe for this amount of blue, I probably just need about the size of a pea, half a pinto bean or something to start. And I'm just going to darken up that blue so I get a very dark navy blue. And I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to use it to darken up the top, the very top of the canvas. And then about the top 2 or 3 inches on the sides. And then I'm going to go gradually down. But I'm not going to bring it down into the green. I'm just going to have it really solid at that top inch, really solid top inch. And then as it goes down, it's less and less so that it's gradual. So basically all we're doing is we're just darkening the top of that sky. But I'm stopping short of the green. And then I'm going to wash my brushes really well. So let's give that about 5 minutes to dry, okay? Don't forget to get up and look at it at a distance, okay? I'm gonna go freshen up my water. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put on some stars, and my painting is still wet. Let me tell you how I know that. You can see at the top it's still shiny, so that means it's still wet. But that's okay, I can put on stars even when it's wet. That won't hurt it. I'm gonna wait on my moon though, but I can go ahead with stars. And a couple other ways to know if it's wet besides it being shiny. If you touch the back, you can feel that where it's dry, it's warmer than where it's cool. And that's another way to know. The third way is to rub it on someone, but I don't recommend that, especially if you have to live with them during COVID. So anyway, but you guys aren't going to do that. I keep thinking that I'm going to say that joke and someone's going to really do it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to take the stick end, not the bristles end, and I'm going to dip it in white paint. And then I'm just going to twist stars all over the background. The first time I touch it, I get a big star, but then if I keep doing it, they get smaller. So I'll have a variety of different star sizes by just reloading every 4 or 5 stars. So I'm going to do that all over the background, mostly in the dark parts of the painting, but you can put it in the light parts as well. So that's for both paintings. You can go ahead with white paint and just poke on some stars all over in your night sky or in your morning sky. Maybe in the morning sky, maybe that's some lights flickering in the distance. Who knows? Maybe it's stars. We don't know. Put as many or as few as you want. Whatever you like, whatever makes sense to you. Just make sure you don't put them on a grid. They don't look natural, and sometimes stars come in clumps or constellations. So you can put a few of them together. I could even do this. In the original painting, it is splattered a little bit. I'm going to show you what, it's kind of hard to see, but there's some very faint splatters, and it's kind of cool to take it outside and splatter paint, but you can get a similar look by just putting teeny tiny stars, but just letting the paint run out on your brush a bit. And let some teeny tiny little stars come off your brush. I'm kind of spinning at my hand so I get just on the side of the end of the brush, getting these teeny tiny little stars. And that looks pretty similar to a splatter. I'm just fiddling, not doing anything that requires instruction, but I was just fiddling, adding a little more white in here. I go back and forth, white, blue. I gotta stop playing with it. Sometimes it's hard to know when to stop, but I'm gonna stop now. All right, stop, Nance. Okay, I have to tell myself to stop. All right, so we've got beautiful background, we've got stars, and we've got little stars and big stars. Now we're gonna put a moon. So I'm gonna take a medium brush. It doesn't have to be round or flat. It doesn't really make any difference because I'm gonna use my brush the same regardless. But it's a medium-sized brush. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint the moon right around here. And somewhere in there, it doesn't matter exactly where, somewhere around there. It's left of center and about a loose hand's width down. I'm gonna choose my spot by just touching, and I'm gonna do this on both paintings, touching where I'm gonna have my moon. I'm gonna just put the center, I'm gonna move over a little bit, there's the center. All right, and then I'm gonna circle out slowly. And if I circle out slowly, I won't need a template. I'll just go slowly. And I'm gonna do this until I get the size of it's a little larger than a clementine. Maybe it's a small orange, something like that. Not those giant navel oranges, just a regular orange. And then I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to go over it with more white paint after. Right now you can see it's mostly white, but it's got a little green in it, so I'll just wait. Actually, I'm going to do something else to it. So if it mixes with your paint, that's great. Let it mix with the background color. That's great. Because that's going to give our moon some character. But we're going to go in and we're going to do other things to it, but let that mix with the other paint. I just noticed my moon is bigger than the moon in the sample, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want. I'm going to put another one right here. Just take your time and circle out slowly. You put it in the center, and then you slowly, slowly circle out. If you have a round brush, it's easier. That means if the metal is on the top, the ferrule is all the way around, then it's easier than a flat brush. A flat brush is crimped here. So it has a skinny side and a wide side, but either one will work. Lots of different brushes would work for this. All right. This painting wasn't as wet as the other one, so this one is not mixing quite as much. And that's fine. Absolutely fine. And it doesn't have to be perfectly round, because 29 days, I think, wait, the moon is on a 28-day cycle, is that right? But basically all but one of the days. It's not a complete full moon, right? A couple days on either side, it looks almost full, but a moon is almost never a perfect round circle. So you don't have to worry about it. Chances are the moon will be perfect. And if it's not round, that's okay. It's just another day. I'm going to put white paint on my finger. Just the brightest, cleanest white you have. And then I'm going to tap it. Excuse me. Pardon me. I'm going to tap it on one side of the moon in the form of a crescent. And basically all I'm doing is I'm highlighting some little moon craters. But I don't want to put it all over. because the moon also has cycles where the sun is highlighting it more sometimes than others. And so to have those craters just on one side, I think looks kind of cool. And on this one, since mine is more white, I'm going to dip it a little bit in orange or yellow, take your pick. And I'm going to put those little craters on with a color. I just need those craters to stick out a bit. And since that moon was already really white, I'm going to have to use a color to do it. If you don't like doing it with your finger, you could use a brush. That would be okay. And if you don't like the craters, you could also just smear it. That's okay too. But just leave one side of it bumpier and messier to show the highlights of the surface of that, okay? The highlights or the shadows. The rest of the painting is going to be the same for both the daybreak and the moonlight, or sunset and sunrise and sunset. They're going to be exactly the same because what's left is going to be the black. So what I'm going to do, just so that you can see it up really closely, is I'm going to change my distance from the camera so that you see this and this. And you can really see me painting those trees up close. Okay, so it's going to take a second. All right, and just remember that regardless of which color you're painting, the next parts are going to be the same. All right. So are you guys ready to make some happy little trees? And I have to say that Happy Little Trees is copyrighted by Bob Ross. So we're going to make happy trees.
Yeah.
Yes, love it.
All right, we're going to make happy trees. So what I need for happy trees is I need either a medium or a large brush. It doesn't matter. I think I'm going to use a large. But use your largest flat brush, whatever flat brush you have in your pack, as long as it's flat. By flat, I mean it's round here. Brushes are round on the ferrule where they meet the stick. Let me wipe that off. They're round here, but as they go up, if it's crimped and one side is skinny and the other side is fat, that's a flat brush. So we want to use a flat brush for this, the biggest one you have. I'm going to take that flat brush and I'm going to hold it down like a pencil because I want to be somewhat exact now. And I'm going to tap that black paint with my flat brush. It's forcing the paint in those bristles. Then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to tap it on the flat side again. And it's really forcing the paint between those bristles. But I don't want any big clumps. I'm going to knock off any big clumps. But you'll see when I do that, I get a pretty straight line. And that's what I want. So I'm going to do the big tree first. And then, actually, let's do the small tree first so that if you want to practice a tree, it's better to do a small one first. Because if you don't like it, just make sure the big one's really good, right? So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to tap, 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 tap. I'm not dragging it down because I don't want the tree to look perfect. I want the trunk to look imperfect because in real life, a pine tree trunk has those like spiky kind of like a spiky surface to it. And I'm trying to make it imperfect like that. So I have my trunk, and then I'm going to drop down a little bit from the point, maybe about a ½ inch, and I'm going to use just the corner of my flat brush, and I'm going to tap on some baby bristles up at the top of that tree. I don't need a lot, and I'm not going all the way up to the point either, because the top of the tree has baby bristles. They're just growing. They grow from here. You know, these grow first and then these grow last. So these are just babies. That's why I made the point just pointy, because there's nothing but trunk up there, new trunk, and then little baby bristles at the top. And then I'm steadying my painting at the top. I'm going to tap. And as I go down, I'm jumping down and leaving space between the branches. And I can flip my brush to get more paint if I'm running out of paint. But I'm mostly holding this brush pretty flat. But I'm jumping back and forth. If you've ever, when I was a kid, and it's been, you know, it's been a really, really long time since I was a kid, right? But when I was in college, did a little bit of rappelling. If you've ever rappelled, it feels like the same motion. You're jumping down as you're jumping out. So coming down and leaving space between the branches. I'm going to load my paint as I need it. Trying not to fling any, which I just did. But that happens. But notice I'm leaving space between the branches because I want there to be a little bit of space for the birds to fly in and make a nest. We don't want any angry birds in our painting. But notice that the bristles are getting farther out from the trunk as I go down. The tree is getting wider. And I'm going to bring these all the way down. I'll tell you why I'm not leaving a stump at the bottom. When you're out in the mountains or in a natural setting, the grass grows up to the top of the pine trees, the bottom level of the pine tree branches. It's only in a city park that they remove the bottom branches so they can mow under it, or when you chop down a Christmas tree. So when you're painting a pine tree, if you want it to look realistic, make those branches go all the way down to the ground. Now I can pull out a few longer ones here and there. If mine was this tree was a little thin, so I can pull out some longer ones here and there if I want. But you get the general idea. And then I'm also going to tap more fullness over the trunk because there are branches sticking out from the back and there are branches sticking out from the front. And this is the only way we can paint that fullness around the center of the tree, is by tapping more around the center. And if that looks really hard and you're afraid to get started, or you got started and you don't like it, don't worry, practice. Take a piece of paper and practice on the paper or a napkin, and then you can fix it. If it's looking like a ladder or a feather, and that happens a lot in our classes where people watch, but then they start tapping the same size on both sides. Remember, it's a little bit of tapping here, but the farther you go down, the more taps you're doing to make it wider. Now my evergreen is a different shape than this one. It's just personal preference and personal experience. You know, maybe this artist was used to seeing evergreens in Florida, and I'm used to seeing them in Colorado. And Nevada evergreens are different than California evergreens. And well, maybe in some parts. Michigan evergreens look different. So there's a lot of variety. When I go to making the other two trees, I want to remember that each tree should be a different size. So you can see this one's the tallest, this is the medium, This is the smallest. I can make a small one here as long as it's smaller than that one, and then a taller one. I want each one to have its own personality and its own height. Because I don't want it to be perfect. Nothing in nature is perfect. So if yours is imperfect, perfect. All right, so there's my tree. And then I'm going to drop down about a ½ inch or so and just leave that pointy. And then I'm going to come in and just make little baby branches holding my brush flat. See that? Pretend you've got a cup of coffee on the top of your flat brush, and if you tilt it, it's going to pour on you. You don't want that hot coffee to pour on you. So leave your brush flat and then tap in some branches near the top. And remember, leave spaces in between so the birds can come in and build a nest. And I'm going out wider and wider as I come down. I'm not worried about the fullness over the trunk at this point. I can go back and put in more fullness over the trunk later, no worries. But notice there's space between the branches. And the more I come down, the more pressure I have to put on my brush because I'm making it wider. I'm making the branches more substantial as I come down, and I'm running out of paint, right, with each pop. So I do need a little more pressure as I come down. And if one branch isn't perfect, good, embrace it. That's what we want. You know, if any of the branches aren't perfect. Because sometimes bears climb trees, and sometimes they're asleep in the trees. We don't know. So if your tree's not perfect, great, that's good. But the general idea, make sure it's that triangular shape. The characteristic triangular shape of Christmas tree, right? And then we take those branches all the way down to the bottom, all the way down. And once I get to the bottom, I can come back in and tap in more fullness over the trunk area. But I don't have to do that till I get to the bottom. But make sure to leave some space. Don't make it a big black triangle pyramid. Leave some space for the birds. I need to paint one more tree. Do you want me to describe it again, or did you get it that time? I don't mind describing it every time.
I think we're good. Thank you, though.
Okay. Yeah, some people need it a lot, and some get it pretty quick. And there's no right way or wrong way to paint. In the center, I'm going to put my tallest one. It's not perfectly in the center. Again, perfection is kind of the enemy of a landscape. You don't want anything to be too perfect. Nature is not perfect. It's perfectly imperfect. Be sure you're chiseling your brush on the side of the plate so that you can get that nice sharp line when you first start out. And always make sure you leave a good sized point at the top of your tree. And then take your trunk, all your branches all the way down. How's everyone doing so far?
Good.
Good. Let me know if you need help, okay?
All right, thank you.
It's Dan, right? Dan? Did I get that right?
Yes.
How are your trees coming, Dan?
Working on it.
Good. I mean, hopefully you're enjoying it too.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the computer, but if you decide that you want to show me yours and get any feedback, just let me know. I'm going to let you guys catch up, but I'll be there if you need me, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that even though each painting looks different, they all look like trees, but all the all the paintings have different trees. So your trees aren't going to look like my trees, and my trees wouldn't look like Bob Ross's trees. So whatever yours look like, it'll be great. And no one's ever going to see the originals. They're just going to see yours, and they're going to think you're a genius.
I like that thought.
I know the trees take a while, so I'm gonna just wait until you guys tell me that you're ready for the birds. And then the birds will be the last step before signing your name.
All right, thank you.
I will show you this part when you're ready, because you're probably seeing me do a little bit. I'm basically just taking a little bit of white after I put my trees on and just tapping on a little bit of moonlight on the tops of the branches, only the ones facing the moon. And just taking it out a little bit. They don't go all the way down. It's just a little bit of moonlight on the moon side of the branches facing the moon. And it's just putting in a little bit on the tip of my, it's very little paint, little on the tip of my flat brush and just tapping it on a little bit. While you're finishing up your trees, I'm just gonna tell you a tiny bit more about our studio. I'm not quite sure how much you guys know about us. When it's not during a pandemic, we're open every single day of the year except for Thanksgiving. And we teach acrylic classes every single day. We teach Bob Ross classes. Those are 6-hour-long oil painting classes. We do that about twice a month. We teach watercolor about twice a month. And right now we have the kits that you're using. Those are $20 each. And then we have them in canvas or face mask. We actually paint face masks around here. Or ornaments. We still have a bunch of ornament kits left. And so all of those, regardless of what kind, they're all $20 each. And then, so we're open only for retail to sell those kits. And we have some face masks that we tie-dyed. But, oh, and we also have some ornaments for sale that we've been painting in our classes. But during the year, we also do fundraisers for nonprofits. It's really important to us to engage in the community and give back to the community. And we're the only local family-owned paint and sip business that I know of that has a Bob Ross instructor on staff. That's me. And well, I mean, none of the chains do. And we also give a huge percentage of our revenue back to the community in the form of gift certificates for area schools and cash donations through our fundraisers. So we really appreciate that you painted with me tonight, and thank you for supporting a local family-owned business.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for accommodating during these weird times and setting up these virtual painting sessions.
There's nothing I'd rather do. I love doing it.
Yeah, we've had so much fun.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and show you the birds, okay? They're super easy, super, super, super easy. So even if you're not quite there yet, you'll see how easy they are. Basically, all you do is you take black paint on the tip of a very fine brush, a tiny brush, and I'm making a dot in the center. Oops, a little bit more paint. Dot in the center, and then I'm coming up, and then I'm flicking the wing. So it's like a mountain, and I flick the wing. It looks a little bit like a handwriting V. I'll put one in the moon so you can see it well. I'm going to have one guy flying right in the moon. So I'm going to touch it in the center, and then I'm going to come up like a mountain and flick. I'm going to touch in the center, come up like a mountain and flick. And I flick it so the ends of the wings are thinnest. And you can put as many or as few as you want. I have one here, I have one here. Maybe this one needs a friend. And I can have this one angled a little bit, his wings angled, so it's just up and then flick down. So that guy's got a friend. Super easy. And you don't have to put them in the moon. I kind of like them in the moon though, because they show up really well. But if you want to practice with one off to the side, that might be a good idea. And if you flick too far, it makes the wing too long. All you have to do is make the other wing longer too. And then when you're finished, just sign it in the bottom right-hand corner so that someday when I see it in a museum, I'll know it's you. Well, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my brushes, and I'm going to leave this view on so you can take as long as you want to finish up. I'm not going to chase you away from this. Take as long as you need while I clean up. And I just want to thank you so much for painting with me tonight.